Good afternoon. Thank you, one and all. We're back here, I think, to discuss a book that has just been released and would be very, I think the conversation would be obviously, we have not read the book yet, but we would definitely get into some of the topics. I've read some of the articles written about it. So let's start with, the first aspect. We've been and this is something that I've mentioned a couple of times during my address, is on this idea of co-creation. Right? We say that how do we develop these applications? We are talking about AI for India, of course, India and beyond, making for India and beyond. And so, Professor Venkat, I think you worked with Professor C.K. Prahlad, the doyen of management thinking. And you proposed this idea way back in 2004, I believe. And so now you talk about co-intelligence in 2025, 20 years. So what does that really mean, and how is this connected?
So first of all, thanks a lot for having me here. So thanks, Jay, and thanks to all of you. So actually, C.K. Prahlad was my mentor, and we coined this term co-creation. Actually, the book came out in 2004, but at the turn of the millennium, where, if you recall, we first had like this Web 1.0. And when the first version of the web came, I remember CK kind of, as he normally would, very thought-provoking asking me, I used to have a Palm-Pilot in my pocket. He said, well, if you had something which was much smarter, and people could actually access this. Later on, we saw the iPhone, but it was just amplifying weak signals, as we call it. And he said, but let's say Venkat, like 1 billion people had, would management still be the same? You were coming at it from the perspective of value creation, or would it be fundamentally transformative? Now, that's a very heady question. But I think, as we discussed, one of the things that I think he was after was that companies have always thought of, over the last 100 years industrial revolution, companies have thought about value through the value chain, right? You build products and services, and that's how we can put value, and then there's a demand side, at the other end, we exchange value to the goods and services. But for us, when we first saw the web, and suddenly consumers are getting informed, connected. So the question that we had on the table, so to speak, was, hey, companies are thinking about value one way, we think about technology, product, features, and so on. But consumers, in a way, have always thought about value in a very different way. Consumers think about, their needs, of course, but they also have aspirations, they have dreams, and they really start with their life experience. So you have consumers thinking from a life experience perspective, it's always been the case, but then through the industrial revolution, people had needed access to goods and services, so we built this, this industrial paradigm where we created goods and services. So the first thing that we basically pose is this disconnect, if you will, between how companies think about value and how consumers think. Is that getting exposed? Maybe pre-industrial revolution, people had that a more kind of life-centered view, but going through the industrial revolution, had this disconnect. And it's not just getting exposed. Will this, as technology advances, we coin this word experience technologies, saying that are we going to shift from products and services to experiences? Because we saw the web as an interactive medium. So that was the first point. The second one is that, so as this would happen, clearly there's some, there's a lot of work has gotten into how we create goods and services, but when you actually create an experience, if I were to create like a Jaya experience, it's not like I can take it and manufacture the experience and give it to them. The experience is not built, right? A Jaya experience has to be co-created. So we said an experience, we think about it theoretically, I can build products and services, but to create experiences, I must involve the experiencer. So that is essentially what we said. This may happen, that this will get amplified, and that therefore, since experience must be co-created, because after all, your experience, and what's meaningful to you is meaningful to you. So how do I involve you based on your context and where you are, and what you're trying to accomplish at a given moment in time? So that was the crux of the book, that an experience must be co-created. So that's one piece. And the other side of it was, therefore, from the So therefore, from the company side, so in order to do this, we said that companies must actually therefore build a whole ecosystem of resources and capabilities that to create that personalized experience, it will probably involve stitching together multiple sets of things, so which no single company could do. So therefore, they have to collaborate and they have to work with different entities and partners. So it's not going to be this linear value chain. They will have to work in a network. And so the idea of an ecosystem was born. And then we have experience. So we said we are really going to this new world of like experience ecosystem, as we call it. But that was just like thinking at that point, and we said maybe this is kind of how the web will now drive the next generation of value creation. Then if you fast forward to 2011, you had the famous quote from Mark Anderson saying, "Software is eating the world." So in our book, we actually said, because remember in 2000, not just the web, we also had Y2K, right? And so then we had a lot of Indian IT companies, of course, at that time, being very proficient in delivering software globally. We said this experiences I should say here will be powered by software, and that so as time went on, that in this ecosystem, it is how do you bring the software capabilities to really be able to provide platforms to people to create different kinds of experiences. So as then software ate the world, as we know, and then just to kind of connect to your question of co-intelligence. So in 2017, which was my sabbatical before last, I actually did it in Koramangala, where I was part of another Nilakani's team, and actually Jagdish Babu was here. There he is. So he and I had lots of interactions, and of course that's also I've interacted with Manish Srivastava. Then I learned a lot. I was a student, and I learned that wow, there is a power of infrastructure. We talk about platforms, and of course they were building what we now call as DPIs, digital public infrastructure. I remember all the efforts in building out from Beam to UPI and so on. So that was very fascinating to see how you could build infrastructure, not point solutions, which was kind of what people were doing prior to that, right? Apps and point solutions. So the idea of actually creating an infrastructure was very powerful. They said, oh, infrastructure is the missing link between these experiences in the ecosystem, because there are so many experiences here, and you have so many diversity of experiences. And so how do you manage all of that? So if you start from the infrastructure, and then you think about platforms in that way, and then you build applications, maybe that's a much powerful way. Now, of course, that was coming at it from the public sector perspective of digital public infrastructure. But simultaneously, people are also building, as private infrastructure. So we coined the word shared digital infrastructure, which could be public or private. And now that was, the moment. So I had interacted with Krishnan during 2007 to 10, when I had actually had worked with Infosys, which wanted to kind of take these ideas of co-creation from the original book with C.K. Prahlad and say, hey, how do we build solutions with this mindset? And so during, just kind of post-COVID, we started engaging, and then suddenly there was the ChatGPT moment, November 30th, 2022. I remember very distinctly. And I was preparing for my next sabbatical, and I said, wow, it's in the infrastructure, but now actually consumers can express how they think about value, because they can just talk in their natural language, and they don't need to understand computers and learn computer language. They can just speak in their natural language. So the language is human in that sense, right, about the life experiences, and the computer can understand it. So when I saw this power of generative AI, it was like, wow, this is going to completely transform how value gets created. But then the narrative, one of the narratives is that AI is going to replace us. So the narrative we propose in the book is, what if AI is here to co-create with us? And if we look at it that way, the glass is half full rather than half empty. It unlocks lots of opportunities, especially if you build on top of these infrastructures and you now start to think about AI and humans creating value together. But most important, where the experiencer can bring, Jaya experience, you can actually communicate what value means to you, and the AI system can understand you and process it, and agents can work in the background in this ecosystem to actually create that unique experience. So in some sense, co-intelligence actually turbocharges co-creation, right? Brings it to a whole new level. It actually makes it very viable, like very feasible, and actually can elevate both the evolution of the system itself and our own human ingenuity, creativeness, aspirations in terms of creating better lives and livelihoods and kind of a better world for ourselves. From a humanity perspective, because we have subjective experiences of the world which AI doesn't. So that crux is the kind of history from co-creation to co-intelligence.
Wonderful. So I think you bring in, you did talk about this life experiences, and you say in the book something called life X-verse. Are they the same or is it different? What is this concept called the life X-verse?
I will hand it over to you.
Sure. So thanks, Jay, for inviting us for this book thing. Of course, for me, I guess I play a bit on the both sides of the equation here as a volunteer organizing this and also being here. So life X-verse, life X-verse and life experiences are very much connected. So let's give an example, right? Like in the book we talk about Jugalbandi. We start the book with the example of Jugalbandi. Okay, and Jugalbandi is a farmer who wants to know, right? Who wants to know what government schemes are applicable for me. That's an example of, and in a way they ask questions in natural language. They don't need to worry about. Right. So we don't need. They don't need to know how technology works. It understands the language and solves their specific problem. That's one example of that life experience getting solved. Yeah, but the farmer, as part of this life X-verse, it's not just related to the scheme. The farmer will have other needs. So, for instance, the farmer may have a need where it says, "Look, you gave me the information, but I'd like you to fill the form." So now the AI system has to understand this, and which is where the next form, the agentic systems and so on that people have been talking about can take over, do the work for them, right? That fulfills another aspect of the life X-verse. But this is a farmer. This could well be a worker in a factory. There's a problem with the system. In this moment, in the flow of this work, I now need to figure out a solution to this problem, right? And so maybe I just show my camera and the machine speaks to me. I can ask it questions or some other knowledge environment. So these are all aspects of that life X-verse, which is a sigma of the life experiences across these different kinds of physical, digital, multiple environments that these various experiences can exist. Yeah, that's the notion.
Wonderful. So I think I will now up the ante, right? So we are also saying that when we interact, you've looked at it from you started with the perspective that there is a system. I am earlier in the first phase, I am just putting things out. In the next phase, I am having the system, the people coming back into the system and interacting with it. So you are able to learn. But now the system itself can start changing because it is learning more as it progresses, right? We saw that with the game playing systems, like where they have these competitions between experts and the game is also learning in the process. So now, how does that work in this ecosystem or this co-intelligence perspective?
Great question. So let's take an example. We also discussed in the book. Take the example of a company called L'Oreal. Some of you may have heard of the company. It's a cosmetics, a beauty company, actually. One of the examples that we use in the book is that of L'Oreal Perso, which is personalized beauty. So he's talking about a farmer interacting, or it could be, their factory workers. So imagine you are a consumer. And so the way Perso works, let me just describe what that experience might be like, is that, you're looking to apply makeup, some foundation or lipstick or whatever it might be. They have lipstick and foundation as part of their skincare line. So you open the app and it does a scan of your face, and it uses augmented virtual reality to actually superimpose anything that you choose. So first you can have a conversation with it. So that's the first starting point. And it might make some recommendations. Say, okay, I want to try it on. So you can try on the lipstick. You can see if it matches with your dress. If you have certain specific clinical needs, like in terms of your skin, for instance, you have some spots or you're worried about some aspects of your skin, you can talk to it, and it basically tries to like understand those things. So, for example, if you're applying foundation and you're using a certain lipstick, so there's a kind of look you're going for, right? There's a beauty ritual that you have. Now, the point is that you actually just talk in your natural language with it, right? It could be any language. Right now, there's obviously a certain set of languages, and of course, French is one of them. And what is very interesting here is that, like you said, the system kind of learns, and it will actually then produce the product for you. So you then hit the button, and in the personal system, it actually makes it for you. It's almost like having a personal factory at home, right? Now, this is obviously the high end. There are 37 brands that rolled it out across 2 of them now. So when you apply it, this is important. It's not a one-time thing. You apply it, but then later on you can talk to it, and it'll ask you. It'll actually do reverse prompting. It'll ask you, what was your actual experience like? And then you can give it feedback, and it learns. And you might say, okay, I felt too dry on my skin or whatever. But it learns. And so let's say tomorrow now when you use it or your context changes, it is learning and it's going to adjust it for you, right? So then you can continue to use it that way. So if you actually look at it, this is very, very powerful. Now, what makes this work is that this underneath this sort of physical, under the hood, so to speak, is an AI factory, which is producing all these tokens, right, of intelligence. And what they have done is used all of that intelligence in this context. Now, of course, every time you're interacting, that's kind of where that intelligence is driving the value creation process between the system and you. So we use that example because L'Oreal has invested a lot in beauty science over the years, but now they can bring all of that knowledge that they have, and they have like over 1,000 dermatologists involved in creating this, over 12 LLMs, etc. So they're going all the technical detail, but they really work very hard because they know that if once they roll it out, it'll have a lot of brand impact, right? So you better get it right. So they worked on it, and it's amazing, and it just completely transforms the experience that consumer has. That's just as an example. In terms of this Jugalbandi, which is a wonderful term because it really captures the essence of this co-intelligence. There's this back and forth where like the AI system is in the loop of my experience, and then I as a human am in the loop of the AI system trying to kind of teach it. So it's not just machine learning, it's machine teaching. I'm teaching it like my set of values, what I like, and the system is learning in a very personalized way.
So, in fact, I'll pick on one small piece that you said. There are a whole bunch of experts that have actually played in the role of actually creating this. So what does that mean for an enterprise now to start saying, okay, I will start using it? It's not just a product that they're putting out. It's not a platform, but it's an entire new way of thinking about engaging with your customer. So what does that mean?
So I will just mention a few things, and I'll have Krishnan chip in. So it's really an experience ecosystem. So going back to where I started, there's a whole bunch of capabilities that you need. But now, actually, if you take this idea, you can apply this kind of thinking anywhere in the value chain. So for instance, you go all the way into their R&D, they're actually now also, based on this, discovering new formulations because they have a lot of beauty science. So this knowledge and insight is also informing scientists in terms of their R&D. So we actually discuss how their R&D has been transformed in terms of now identify. Now, this is a very high-end personalized system. They also have standard products. They have over 700 varieties. So, for example, L'Oreal India, they have a global capability center here. They have designed specific collagens for example, the Indian market and so on. But there, it is just matching you to what products exist on the shelf. It's not this personalized product. But still, it's huge value because a lot of consumers don't know which product to buy. So, there, it's informing their beauty science, and they're able to now bring, again, this kind of expertise into the scientific discovery process. Just like in pharma now, people are designing new molecules. Actually, AlphaFold, Nobel Prize winner service, right? So that's in terms of protein unfolding. So actually, what we say is you're starting here. So here's the summary. It ripples across everywhere. Ultimately, all the way from the R&D to the development. But in each instance, there is a co-intelligence at work in terms of that interaction between research scientists, or could be a data scientist, or whoever, a developer interacting the system. So our focus is more on that interaction, and we can get back to this, as to how, therefore, like the development of software will change. Because the software is eating the world. Jensen Huang has said, AI is eating software. What is AI? And someone now at MIT is saying, it's the philosophy that we bring our values and culture to doing that. So there's a whole now parallel set of things we need to think about in terms of how software engineering might morph in terms of how you build that software architecture for this. But that's happy to come back to that.
Maybe I'll just add one point, which is like you said, of course, it impacts the entire organization. And that's the question we ask. Now, in this co-intelligence world, can you afford to be the same kind of organization that you were before if you have to create the fullest extent of value, right? And so so there are a number of characteristics we discuss in the book, but I just want to pose this question to the audience here. What do you think and we call this the co-intelligent enterprise, but what do you think is the one characteristic, okay, which you think is, the organization has to be, one characteristic of this organization that has to operate in this world? There are no right answers here, but what do you think? Anyone? This is just to make sure that
It profitable.
Okay, if there are okay, that's one perspective, but not in the direction that you're looking at. Lean, dynamic is.
I think he's referring to the management system.
Okay.
The management system, yes. Well, for you to exist, you have to be profitable as an enterprise. But yeah, dynamic is one. Learning, yes, that's another very powerful this thing. So dynamic learning, these are all what we call as living systems organizations, right? We reference the human body itself. We are a living system. So can we think of an organization that is a living system that figures out it operates in an ecosystem. It doesn't exist in isolation, right? And so I think there are lots of changes, but let's just say living system is one example.
So let's take this analogy one step further, right? So everything you've said is great. We are going to get out of the door and we're going to start applying it. But like every living system, there is a risk. Like we could trip on the stair that's outside to catching some virus or something like that. So how do we deal with the risk in this case? What are the risks and how do we deal with it?
Absolutely. We have a whole chapter on that. But let me set it up and then I'll turn it over to Krishnan. So again, going back to the world we were in, it's very important. We controlled risk. In the whole value chain, to go back to the Japanese quality movement. The whole idea was, if I give you a product, not experience, product, I give you this product to you and I give it to Vivek, let's say, you would expect the same product, right? So it is all about the quality of the product. This was the Japanese revolution of total quality management. Then same thing, product quality. Therefore, we have to control all the processes that output these products. Right? So we have mastered that, Six Sigma, right? Now comes the catch, because now once I move it, so I was just discussing this earlier with Gaurav actually, saying in this world, or the world we're in, variability, as they say in Japanese language, is the enemy, right? You have to reduce variability across the product. Now, in this world of now, so this still exists, but now when I come to create an experience, it's the exact opposite. Variability should be my friend, because what experience you want and what even you at a different point in time is very different. This is a huge challenge for companies that have produced products. So as you produce intelligence now and you're co-creating experiences, it's going to be a massive shift, going back to the question you posed in terms of the management systems, because all of a sudden I have to embrace this variability. So I dealt with a closed loop system. Now I have to be very comfortable with an open loop system, right? Which is very challenging for companies. So we give how companies are dealing with it. But I think that's a very important thing to recognize. And so, exactly like you said, risk is the other side of this coin. In other words, when you go here, you just increased all kinds of risk that before everything you were controlling. Of course, things like security, privacy, those are the obvious ones. But there are all kinds of new risks now, from brand risk, supply chain risk, all kinds of risks you're introducing in the system, which managers were carefully controlling, whether it's customer-facing activity, sales, marketing, service, or product, or supply chain. What we find is these companies are now, and L'Oreal, and then we also discuss the example of Siemens, so we take a business-to-business example. They are completely reimagining the entire management system. They're saying this is a revolution, it's completely different. The the enterprises were built was for the Henry Ford factory, where you built all these cars that came out. But now the car is intelligent and interacting in these ways. This is the future enterprise. So we're just kind of just getting started. And what we are just saying, positing, is that we have to build these core intelligence enterprises. Right? Core intelligence has to be infused in every part of the system, and therefore governance and management of risk kind of go hand in hand. So that's the other jugalbandi you have to do, so to speak.
And I mean, so NIST, the BISC equivalent in the US, they have actually articulated 12 risks which are particularly accentuated by generative AI, right? And so I mean, there are people who are sort of categorizing these risks, but I just want to give one or two examples to illustrate and how this may be solved. For instance, the risk of disinformation. Now, in the book, we feature one Chinese EV company called NIO. Okay, now NIO, one of their strengths is that more than 50% of their sale came from people recommending their products, which is very good, right? But when some accident took place, suddenly you had one group of customers posting something online and saying this is the reason why this happened, and another group giving a completely different reason, and suddenly out there in the social media, not controlled by, to his point, it's not controlled by NIO. There is disinformation warfare happening. Okay, not by competitors, but by their own customers. And so how do you now put yourself into this situation, manage it? This is now a new risk.
We have many examples like this.
So this is just one.
Wonderful. So, in the interest of time, I think I'll open it up. I think there's one session where I think it would be good if we could have any questions from the audience. Huh? You have to co-create, yes. So, questions from the audience. I think anyone who has, I know it's hard to ask questions when they have not read the syllabus.
No. Actually, I have my good friend ChatGPT.
Okay. Yeah. So, please, I think any questions? Otherwise, I have one question that I can ask, but otherwise, open it up. Yes.
You can introduce yourself before you ask.
Sure. I'm Shabir. I run a studio called Future Labs. We are working on bringing AI to the rural areas in the bottom 90%. In fact, my question is around that. Like, while we're talking about co-intelligence, when it comes to somebody who's educated, for them, they can leverage AI very easily. What are some thoughts you have on how do we really make those who have low literacy or no literacy, how do we make them leverage AI?
It's not about literacy, as I'm sure Vivek and Sunil Gupta were talking earlier. It's about voice, right? They have a voice. They can express themselves. So for the first time now, we can capture their voices, right? It's very, very important. And that can drive the way in which you understand people. Even going back to the Japanese quality movement, the whole thing was the voice of the customer drives the product out. But today, truly, you can get in their voice. You don't have to go and try to figure out what their voice is, do some market research and all of that. So I think this technology really can unlock whole new forms of value and ways in which we can actually make it more inclusive, which was one of the challenges posed to us earlier, right? So I think we're just getting started, but that means that we have to obviously now bring all this voice, and we had a lot of discussion in the first session, right, where Professor Ganesh also talked about how to actually bring all of this, learning through various kinds of, dialects and Indian languages. So I think that's the power of it, is that therefore people can just be where they are, right? It's like the AI has to, we're talking about technology discipline, but imagine the farmers in the field. I'm not suggesting the farmer should use some glasses or something because, or whip out a phone, but it has to be very natural where the farmer can just talk and the AI is learning and saying, there's something wrong here, right? And bring that intelligence in that moment, in that context. That's kind of where the value is going to get created. So from a tech stack point of view, we're saying it's at the top of the stack where all of the interaction is taking place. That's where the new forms of value will get created.
So let's have a follow-up question.
Hi, this is Suresh from Samati. So just following on that, so do you think that the voice is going to be the interface, especially when you come to the end users?
Yeah, so clearly voice is absolutely crucial. But we talk about multimodal. So what I'm saying is, it's not just, so the person can articulate in the voice, but the system with sensors is also observing, right? So there's also that observability of the AI, right? So it's that joint creation where I am speaking, but the system is also observing, right? Going back to my L'Oreal example, I might express myself, but the system is also knows kind of what's happening in my face, so to speak, right? So the system also has intelligence, and it might be able to scan the environment and be able to fuse that along with your voice. But all you're doing is just trying to be yourself.
Yeah, got it.
I just want to make one comment with respect to the previous question. I think it is a question which requires deep thought, as in there is research required. There is right now an intuitive feeling that co-intelligence is going to help with digital divide. Yeah, it's going to reduce digital divide. I mean, I feel that. Now, for example, I work closely in AI in education. Now, is it going to help people who are not literate, right? We saw two examples of how it's helping those folks gain the stuff. But exactly, will it help the person who, the bottom of the class, the middle of the class, the people who perform very well? How exactly will co-intelligence system help these people differently, right? I think we need more research to really understand how this technology is going to solve societal problem and whether it's going to help. I mean, it is. I think a number of PhD people are going to be having their hands full in the coming years solving this problem.
Just one quick remark. I talked about humans in the loop of AI, but AI also the loop of humans, right? So together, that's the human AI co-creation. So one quick comment I want to make is, if you were to ask me, I just walked in this morning, what's the color of the wall I passed by? I don't know. Anybody know? Or what was on your right-hand side? I think you might have gone to the registration desk. I don't know. I think you would fail that test. But if I was a humanoid robot, you can actually even zoom in and look at the color. It may even tell you where the wood on the desk came from and all of that, right? So one of the things, when I say philosophy is AI, one of the points we make in the book is, look, my intelligence I'm enrolled with natural intelligence. That's the human intelligence. And we say this is a different kind of intelligence, just to be clear. We're not anthropomorphizing it. Our view is that this is a different kind of intelligence that's extremely useful. But the way a robot is perceiving the world, the robots, and the way I as a human perceive the world is very different. And what I bring with my creative capacities, and first of all, we created the AI systems. So what we're saying is, we need to bring our values and steer these systems in a way in which it is helpful for us, humans, in terms of the lives we lead, right, and what we want to create, right, and making lives better, right. So we need it to work for humanity. So, but what we're also saying is philosophically that the systems are intelligent in their own way. And so going back to the question that was raised, so yes, I'm speaking in the local language. The system, is perceiving this thing, which for me, I don't know, So together, with co-intelligence, we can actually co-create, new forms of value, which maybe either system couldn't do alone. So I think that's the key point. And we're going to co-evolve with it. And so we will also have to enhance our, creative capabilities. And maybe that's what it would do to us. And we also need to steer the system because we have subjective experience of the world, which it doesn't have. And so that's the kind of, I love the word jugalbandi. So, thanks to Vivek. But that captures the spirit of this co-intelligence and co-evolution of this intelligence in creating value together. That's the co-creation we're talking about.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think